giving you useful and practical tips to help you make more money selling travel. This is the Art of Selling Travel Podcast, and here to guide you through it all, your host, Glenda Beagle.
Hey, and welcome back to another episode. This week, we are answering a question from Lisa, again, from a conference this past fall. If you've got questions, please send them through. You can either send me an email or come hang out with me over on Instagram. We've been collecting questions off of there as well, Art of Selling Travel. You can find us pretty much anywhere at Art of Selling Travel. And I would love to have a conversation with you about what it is that you want to know more of in your travel business. But this week, the question that came was, do you really need a host agency? And so this is what I said on stage, but also to some of the notes that I've added since then. And the short answer is no, you don't need a host agency. But, and we're going to go real heavy on the but, this is some of the reasons why you should really and truly consider one. So now, if you are brand new, I'm going to tell you, you need a host agency. You need to be working through under somebody. There is so much that you are going to need to know, to learn, and other such. And that's aside from all the regulatories, depending on where it is you're located. Being with a host agency is absolutely necessary when you're starting. You've got to have somebody who's going to help get you going in terms of even simply knowing what suppliers and other such. When I went from working for somebody as an employee to opening my own office, I did buy a franchise location. And it was, it was in 2011 that I did that. It was a Canadian office. And it was sort of like if you were to have like a Taco Bell or a Tim Hortons or something. It was a physical location, but it was my own. It was my own credentials and everything else. I just put their branding on my business and, of course, did my buying power through them. But here's the deal. Here's why you should consider a host agency, especially if you're independent and on your own. The buying power. So buying power equals preferred commission rates. See, some suppliers pay as little as like 5% commission, maybe even a little less. On average, you're going to see a lot in the 8 to 10%. But you can have a supplier, let's say a river cruise, for example, that might have a base commission of as little as 10% or 15%. But when you work with a preferred supplier that sells a lot of that company and there is a solid basis for commissions, you might see commissions as high as 22, maybe a little higher. But if you're on your own, you might only be at 10. And so some people say, but I can do it on my own and it won't cost as much. I promise you, 1 or 2 bookings, when you have more than doubled your commission, you're going to make back an awful lot of that just on 1 or 2 bookings. Buying power also equals advocacy channels for the client. See, if something goes wrong and you're on an island all by yourself and you've only booked that supplier once or twice or 3 times in a year, they kind of don't care. But when you're a part of a larger network, be it a host agency, consortia, whatever that looks like, and therefore they have thousands, if not tens of thousands of passengers coming out of that channel in a year, and something goes sideways, yeah, they're going to listen. There's usually even a preferred partner relations person within that supplier that works with your host agency. The size of your agency sometimes can be a reflection of the level of advocacy, but also to even in a smaller host agency, but it's one that's done a lot of business and or has made the time to network and build relationships, that you can also get the advocacy. Buying power also equals exclusive offerings and value adds. We're not a big one about competing on price, but there can be a lot of value adds. You'll see that as well. Some suppliers are going to work with large national organizations, be it ACTA or ASTA, where there might be something beneficial there. There might be something for being a part of this consortia or being a part of this type of network or that network. All of those add up to exclusive offers and value adds that you might not be able to get elsewhere. Good host agencies are going to offer you access to education, processes, and business growth. Now, not all of them are going to do that. And so I want to make sure that you know that just because one does it one way doesn't mean that they all do it. See, every host agency is running their own business, and business ultimately is about business. It's about dollars and cents. So how are they operating it? Now, if you're north of $1 million annually, you could consider going it alone, but a consortia is still going to be highly suggested, highly suggested. I remember meeting somebody once. Oh man, this was a lot of years ago. I can remember it was like the Holiday Inn on 67th Street in Red Deer. And I remember we were having this conversation and she's like, no, I don't use a consortia. I don't use a host. I don't use anything. That way nobody is taking money out of my pocket. And I was like, nobody's taking money out of your pocket, but there's also nobody advocating to put more money into your pocket. And so we had a bit of a conversation, and yeah, she was making bottom of the barrel commissions, but she thought she was so much further ahead because she wasn't having to pay anybody. So we just did a little bit of quick math. This was like 2007, I want to say, that we had this conversation. And I remember back then thinking, oh, people don't get it. And so we did a little bit of quick math, and I said, well, the agency I'm at, we're getting this commission with the supplier. We're here to see tonight, and you're getting that commission. So on a sale of this much, like this is how much different on every single file. And just what she was going to do in that month was light years more, just in the difference, than what being a part of a consortia would do. And then she just said, but I want to be my own boss. And that was the day that I knew that you could coach people, but it didn't mean that they wanted to listen. So we both learned something that day. But anyways, you definitely at least want to consider a consortia. Even if you don't want to do the hosted, definitely consider a consortia, again, for that access to buying power. And also, too, through good consortias, they also have partner relationship advocacy going on as well. Host agencies, however, are not perfect, nor will they solve every problem. Here's the deal. We see a lot. I get a lot of messages from travel advisors complaining about host agencies. And I've seen a lot of different things. But then there's also things where they're not perfect either. You know, you've got to know what it is that you're going to be getting. You need to know exactly what it is that you're wanting from that host agency. Some are absolutely phenomenal for those first couple of years of business. They are set up completely for bringing people in, for getting you started, for getting you up to speed on sales, on how to actually find suppliers, what suppliers to work with, what's the difference between this supplier and that supplier, and all of these different sorts of things. But of course, that's going to be reflected in your commission split. And then they don't have anything different for later on when you don't need that type of support. And therefore, you could be making a lot more commission with somebody else. I just want to kind of remind you that ultimately choosing your host agency, you're not marrying them for eternity. You're just entering into a business relationship for a season. Now, some people's season will last just a year or two. Other people's seasons will last a decade or two or more. You may outgrow your host, and that's okay. It's not personal. If you outgrow your host agency, it's not personal. It's not about them. It's not about you. But instead, it's about the relationships that you have. See, when you work with a coach, so if you were to come be one of my clients, when, not if, when we work together, be it in one of my coaching programs, be it as part of a mastermind, be it as a part of one-to-one coaching, whatever it is, my ultimate goal is to work with you to a point where you outgrow me. Now, I am forevermore working on my own skills, working on my own knowledge, working on my own everything so that I can stay ahead of the curve. But at the same time, if somebody comes to me and says, you've taken me this far, I need to move on to somebody else to go the next route, I am ecstatic for them because I know to what level I can get them to. And so to know that they've hit that and they've outgrown that lights me right the flip up because I know where they're at then. So it's okay to outgrow somebody. It's not personal. And I promise you, anybody who takes it personal, yeah, that's not who you want to be in a business relationship with anyways. Host agencies have specific roles to provide you with the booking channels. That is a very important part of the problem. But I also want to remind you, when you're reaching out to choose a host agency, when you're doing an inquiry, when you're talking to somebody, this is kind of the hard one to swallow. When you're reaching out to a host agency, you're reaching out to a sales team. You're going to be pitched to. That's why everything is always going to be sunshine and roses. And that's why they are the best at this and they are the best at that. And they're going to give you like an absolutely amazing this, that, or the other. See, here's the thing. When I work with travel advisors who come back to me and they're like, okay, I need to look at switching my host agency. They didn't give me anything I promised. And so we'll break it down because I'm a big pro-con list. What is it that you were promised and don't believe was delivered? Now, was that on you or is that on them? Because if they said that they were going to give you this, and this, let's look at it. Did they provide it, but you just didn't access it because you didn't like the way it was delivered or whatever? Or was it genuinely not provided? Because if you're not accessing it, that's a different type of conversation because you're going to need to ask different questions about how the next one is going to deliver things. But if that's not what it is and you just chose not to, well, then it's maybe not a bad host agency. We need to look at what it is that you are looking for in your business. Sometimes as travel advisors, I see a lot of, but I just need them to show me everything. A big one is getting the leads that this host agency is going to provide me with all the leads. Here's the scoop. If a host agency is providing you with lots and lots of leads, I actually am not sure that I would trust that host agency. See, it's a way for host agencies to be able to keep advisors in more of an employee role without the employee benefits. If you're building a business built with clients for yourself, they need to be yours without any strings attached. See, when they tell you, when you're an independent and they tell you, this is the rules, I'm going to give you this lead, but then you cannot charge them fees. You cannot do this. You cannot do that. That's no longer independent. That is a host that is treating you like an employee without respecting the boundaries of you being in business. And it's really important to recognize, are you genuinely in a entrepreneur space or are you in an employee space without the benefits that actually come with being an employee of that consistent paycheck that's going to show up every 2 weeks, that's going to give you benefits that take care of insurances and everything else. The other one that comes is when they give you a lead, they reduce your commission. And in some cases, significantly reduce the commission. And the worst part of it all is you may build up a beautiful rapport with the clients, but you're not allowed to keep that client. They have to go back into the Rolodex for somebody else the next time. So again, that's where you're in that employee role. We want to make sure that when you are choosing a host agency because you want to be a self-employed travel advisor, you want to build your own business, that you are in fact building a business and not just taking on an underpaid employee role. When you're reaching out and you're getting that sales team, just remember you're going to be pitched to. They're going to pitch you all about, we're going to provide you with leads. We're going to give you all of this. We're going to give you all of that. You need to be asking questions. What does it look like? If you provide me with a lead, do I get to keep those clients? am able to close them and build a relationship with them, do they become my clients or do they belong to you? The same goes for when that sales team is telling you all about this amazing contest they're going to run where they're going to give away free trips so that you get people on your email list and all they got to do is go to your portal of the website, then they're going to get entered. Well, where do those emails go to? Do they become exclusively yours? Or does the host agency get to contact them? If you have clients that you're bringing into the business, is the host agency going to market on your behalf? Because what happens if you leave? What happens if you don't want those marketing pieces to go out? How are you able to opt your clients out of it? What does that look like? And I know so many of them are going to be like, it's so good. We're going to send out emails on your behalf. We're going to do all this. We're going to do this. We're going to do that and everything else. You want to make sure that you are always in control of the message. Ultimately, a host is just that. They're the host. They're not the boss. You're building your business independent of theirs. So again, do you need a host agency? No. Do I recommend it? Absolutely. See, a lot of times we think that we're going to make so much more money going it alone. But the reality is, unless and until we have all the systems and processes in place, until we have everything fine-tuned and a constant pipeline coming in, you're so much better off staying within a host agency, staying within a system that's going to help guide you, that's going to be there to not only build you up, because so many of these host agencies have amazing communities where you have others you can reach back to, where you can say to them, I've got this problem. How do I fix it? And if your host agency isn't offering that, make sure you come over, join our Facebook group. We've just gone through a bit of a rebrand. We're going to talk about that in the new year. But it's building your travel business for travel agents so that you have a place to come and ask questions. If you've got questions about host agencies, come and ask inside of there. We would love to help you out. There is resources online. There is a couple of websites that you can go to. Host Agency Reviews is one that comes to mind right away. I do know there's another. The thing with those ones is that they don't have everybody. There is different sizes of agencies. Some of them only have a small handful, and in which case you are part of a very small agency, but they're a part of a consortia that you can work directly with the owner. Other ones have hundreds, if not thousands and thousands of travel advisors. What each one offers is going to be different based on the size they are, based on the level to which they've grown, based on the systems and processes they've put in place. It's an individual decision. And as I said before, it's okay to outgrow your host. It's okay to start with one and transition to another. It's also okay for it not to be personal. It is okay for every decision you make to not be about the people, but instead about the business, about the numbers, about everything else. Okay, that is all for this episode. We will see you back here again next week. Until then, happy selling.